Hello, Keith Rucker here at VintageMachinery.org. So after a little long hiatus on the Foundry furnace, getting ready to get back on this project. Biggest problem I've had with finishing up so far is just finding the time. It seems like every time I got to where I was going to start on this, some other project came up, and quite often they were priorities and just had to go jump on the other thing instead. But we're back on it now, and hopefully going to go ahead and get this thing knocked out over the next few weeks. What I'm going to work on today, or right now anyway, is making some forms for the lid that will go on the furnace. So I've got a piece of metal here. This is some 3-inch wide band iron. I don't know, looks like maybe 3/16 or so inch thick. And I rolled this into a 20-inch diameter circle, welded it up. And this is going to be the frame that's going to hold the lid that's going to fit down onto the furnace. And what we want to do though, when we pour the refractory in this, I want it to have where it's got about 1.5 inches in the bottom. There's a 5-inch opening in the middle, and then part that goes up that's 1.5 inches thick. And there'll be some areas in here that we'll just put insulation in to save on weight and refractory. This doesn't have to be solid across here. And of course the hole in the center will be for the fumes and gases and stuff to come out from the furnace. So that's just a sketch of what we're after. So basically what I need to do is I need to make some wooden forms that are going to fit down inside the hoop that will basically form out the areas where there will be no refractory, and of course we'll pull those out after everything is dried. So I have got some pieces of plywood here that we're going to make those forms out of. My hoop diameter is about 20 inches, so I cut me some 10-inch by 20-inch rectangles here out of some roughly 3/4 inch plywood, and we're going to lay these out. I need to get the 1.5 inch thickness. I need to put 2 of these side by side. So that looks good, and I'm going to come in here and I'm going to crisscross these to give them some strength and screw these together. And again, we're going to have to cut this out to get us the shape we want. So let's lay our hoop in here just to give us some bounds. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a couple of screws in here to screw all this together to make it one piece. So next thing we want to do is actually cut the circle out that will hopefully fit right down inside this form. And I'm going to put my weld right here so I can position this back. This ring is fairly round, but it's not perfectly round. And we're just going to use it as a template to draw out here. And having that marked there will make sure I get it back in the same spot. So I'm going to go over to the bandsaw now, and we're going to cut that circle out. So before we cut this out, just one little comment that I forgot to mention a while ago. I'm sure people are asking, why did you cut 2 halves here instead of just making it out of a solid piece? And the reason is that's going to help me when I go to disassemble this to get it out. If it's a solid piece, it's not going to come out of that form or out of the ring very easily. But hopefully by having the 2 halves, I can unscrew all this stuff and it's going to come apart a little bit easier. At least that's the plan. We'll see how it works. Let's cut this out. So that looks like it's going to be a good fit. It's a little bit tight, but it's going to slide over. I don't want to put it on quite yet because it may be hard to get back off, but we're good to go. So next thing we need to do, again, there's our drawing, what we're after, and we need to have, we're basically making the form for this area right here. So we need to have a hole that's going to go all the way through this. Our opening here is going to be 5 inches. I want 1.5 inch wall thickness on each side, so I add another 3 inches, so I'll be 8 inches total. So I got a compass set on a 4-inch radius, which is an 8-inch diameter, and we're just going to draw that on there. And cut that out. And we'll drill a hole through here. We'll take our scroll saw and we'll work our way around. Holes in it now. We got everything screwed together. Everything's looking good. When I put this, I'm going to mount this all on another piece of plywood that will basically give me a bottom to everything. But I want to make sure that I can take this thing apart. So I put my screws in from this direction. And what I'll do is I'll take the bottom, this piece off. And when I do, I want to make sure I got my screws that I can unscrew. So I got my screw heads pointed up. And this piece is just going to screw down on top, and it's not critical where it goes on. It just needs to go on where there's a lip all the way around. So let me get some screws and we'll screw this down. All right, so I put my mark over here again where my weld goes to position that. I did that before I put it on, and this is getting real close. So this is about ready to go on, but before I do, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here and I'm going to paint this whole surface with some spray paint, just some enamel spray paint that will hopefully make it a little bit more waterproof so that the concrete won't stick to it as bad. And actually what I'll do is I'm going to take some something and grease this up to have a release agent on it before we actually pour it. But that'll be the last step. But I am going to go ahead and just spray paint this with some enamel paint. And once that dries, we can start putting everything together. With the top form all ready now, we're going to go ahead and start building up the rest. So, this is the base. It's been covered in previous videos. It's the same as it always has been. This is the outer form again. We covered this in previous videos on how we made this using a plastic barrel. Go ahead and kind of get it lined up on here where we want it, and I'm going to take some C-clamps and just kind of clamp this in place. That looks like about where it needs to be. The next part to go in is going to be the inner form, and this is where we're changing up plans a little bit from the previous attempt where we used the cardboard sonotube that failed. And I had a lot of suggestions from you guys out there about how to go about doing this, but in the end I probably decided to go a little bit overkill, but I figure if it's worth doing, it's worth overdoing, so that's what we did. So what I did was I've got a piece of sheet metal that was bent up into a circle. It's been spot welded all down one side to get a nice tube. And this was done locally by a little sheet metal shop we got here in town. I went by and asked them how much it would cost to get this made up. I think this is 14 gauge. I probably need to measure that. That may not be right, but it's fairly thick metal, thick enough that it's not going to collapse. The guy at the sheet metal shop charged me $20 to build this, which is about what a cardboard sonotube cost. So I said, you know what, that's going to be what we go with. So anyway, this is designed where the bottom end of it is 14 inches in diameter. It's got a little bit of taper. The top of this is 14 1/4 inches in diameter, and I did that on purpose with the thought that we've got to pull this whole thing out once the concrete sets up. And if it's got a little bit of draft to it, I'm hoping it's going to pull out a little bit better. So we are going to go ahead and grease this thing up to put a little, so it doesn't bind to the concrete as well as in addition, but hopefully that little bit of draft's really going to help. And we went in and using our paper template, just like we did on the sonotube, we put that on here. I cut it out with a jigsaw and tested it out, and it's going to work just fine there. In the bottom, I put a piece of plywood and I nailed it all the way around. Got a hole in the middle with a piece of all thread coming through here. That's going to go the entire depth. And what that's going to allow me to do is I've got a hole drilled in the bottom of the furnace. That's a drain hole in case the crucible ever breaks or whatever. I can drop this rod through the bottom. We're going to take a bolt and a couple of washers, and we're just going to tighten this down. So this will be firmly attached to everything in here, and that way there's no chance of this thing floating up to the top. So when we put all that concrete in there with all the air in here, it could try to raise up in the form, but by bolting everything down, hopefully it should stay firmly in place and we won't have any problems there. I am going to take a little bit of duct tape and put around where I got some nails also in the top. I've cut a ring here. I've got a hole where I can get access to everything in the bottom. But I put another ring here and kind of nailed it around the top again, just to give it some more rigidity in the top and also to help keep that circular shape. Again, that may be overkill, but we're going to make sure this thing doesn't fail this time. So I'm not worried at all about this collapsing. It should hold up just fine, and for a $20 investment, I think it was well worth it. So I'm gonna go ahead and drop this down in here. I've got a line, you see right here, this line and this line. These were put on here using the paper templates, and that way when these two lines are in line with one another, the holes should be in line with one another as well for my pipe to go through here, that the air and fire inlet's going to come through. So anyway, let's drop this down in here. Well, as I was getting ready to tighten that up, I realized I hadn't finished with this, so I pulled it back out before we got too deep into that. I'm going to take a strip of duct tape. This is the seam where they welded everything up, and just to kind of smooth it up a little bit. Oops. Also, around here I got some nail holes. I don't want that gripping into the concrete too much, so we're just going to wrap a strip of duct tape around those all the way around this. And I'm going to do the same thing down here at the bottom. I'll tell you what. And finally, we want to put a releasing agent on here to help pull this form out when the time comes. And for that, I'm using Crisco. It's a grease, basically an oil, that should help keep that concrete from binding to this and help it break loose. I wanted to avoid using a petroleum-based lubricant on this, just simply for contamination purposes. The vegetable oil, I think, will be a little bit cleaner, and that's what Crisco is made from. So anyway, we're just going to take this and lube it up. So now we should be ready to put this back in. So you can kind of see where we're at now. I've got my piece of pipe up through here, and it's going through both the inner and outer forms, fitting through these holes that we cut out, made to transect this pipe with these diameters so it fits in there just right. And it's a pretty good fit. This is just, like I said, a piece of clear plastic pipe. Squirted some spray insulation down there to just kind of expand it out to fill up the inside of this, just so that it wasn't loose all the way through, because we are going to fill up the inside of this a little bit later with some stuff. And I wanted to make sure that things didn't come out of the pipe. Now what I want to do is get in here and seal it up. It's not quite up against the inside of the form on the inside, up against the wall, and what I've got is a stick, and we're going to go down there and kind of pry it in there. I don't know if I'll be able to get on video because it's just tight quarters. Get it down there. I'm also going to put some silicone all around that to kind of seal it up, so that the refractory hopefully won't come out. We'll seal it up on both sides. And I'm going to take the silicone here and just kind of smear it all down in here and get it when it seals up, that it'll hopefully be a good seal all around that. All right. And the stick, hopefully you guys can see this. We'll go down in there like such, and I'll just kind of press that up against the side. And we're just about through, but with this. But the last time our failure was all around where the pipe comes in, and I want to again make sure we got it good and sealed up. Wait for the train to go by. So I'm going to take some little spray insulation here, little foam insulation, and we're basically just going to fill up all around this and make sure we got a good seal all in here. I'm just going to fill the whole bottom up. This stuff expands, forms a real good tight seal around everything. You should be getting an idea of what the form's doing now. So this is going to allow the refractory to kind of go down between these inner and outer form. It'll form the tube that the air and the fire will come in from the side, which will be removed later on. The next thing is we have a little lip up here at the top. It's about 3 inches thick, and it's going to come back out to form actually a little shelf here. And to do that, we got another ring here that's been welded up. And I did make a little change to this from the last one. I went back in here and actually put a metal shelf up under this. The refractory is sitting on a shelf rather than just hanging out to the side. I was afraid that it may crack and break. So this right here will actually, the little piece of metal is going to just barely go up into this inner wall here, just enough for it to be able to grip in there. So we'll lay this on top, and find the right spot for it here. So I got this, the upper ring is now positioned right where I want it, and make sure it doesn't move. I'm just going to take a couple of blocks of wood, and we'll just go around it and screw these down, and that way if it gets bumped or something, it won't actually move around. So this is going to about be a wrap on this episode. We got our forms now ready to pour. I do want to let all the spray insulation and sealant and everything I put in here have a good chance to cure overnight before we actually do the pour. So we'll probably try to come back in tomorrow, and we have plenty of time, and we can go ahead and give the refractory pour another opportunity to work. I think this time I feel real good about my setup, and I don't think we're going to have any problems. It's all ready, so we're just going to let this rest, and we'll bring that to you in another episode coming very soon. Thanks for watching.